A pleasant morning, everybody. A pleasant morning to the division superintendent, Ma'am Jusita Carmen, and good morning to Ma'am Lisa Gingging. Thank you for allowing me to talk to the different school heads and the different viewers of today's research forum. I'd like to understand that this is a very important gathering because we are going to discuss things which could allow us to help ourselves in the development of the young, specifically in how to become a good leader and a good manager in times of the pandemic. So today, I'm tasked to present to you how to give a proper mindset of the school heads in the new normal. So that is going to be my topic for today, school heads mindset in the new normal. I'm Dr. Fluellen. I'm the principal of Carrascal National High School, for those who do not know me. And I'm happy to be with you this morning. So I'd like to start my discussion on the concept of this one. When the pandemic started, it seems that time stood still. For many, when the pandemic hit, their lives altered drastically, almost overnight. With such drastic and unexpected change happens, it's difficult not to feel a sense of loss and sadness, especially if much anticipated events of the students like class opening, intramurals, and other significant school-related events was curtailed. That is the time when a lot of things happened in the field, and we were not able to be prepared for such thing to take place. And we know that there is an effect to the psychological mindset of the students and even to the parents and to the school heads as well. That is the reason why we need to be steadfast in understanding our rules, and the learning continuum must happen. We also have to understand that we need to have a proper mindset in these times, according to the American psychologist Carol Dweck and author of Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. There are two main mindsets which we navigate in life, and that is what we call as the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. In a fixed mindset, people believe that intelligence and talents are fixed traits that cannot change. Thus, they document their intelligence and talent rather than develop and improve them. They believe that talent alone leads to success and effort isn't required. Although this could be considered as a theory which could be applicable, but it would lead to a fallacy, or it would lead to become a fallacy because mind setting should be dynamic. That's the reason why we don't resort to a fixed mindset, but we welcome the growth mindset. Because this particular mindset believes that intelligence and talent can grow with time, experience, and effort. When people believe their intelligence and talents can be cultivated in order to succeed, they put in extra time, leading to greater achievement. This is one of the things which I'd like you to consider, specifically for those school heads who are tuning in right now. We need to understand that our mindset should be dynamic, even in trying times like this. You know, the tasks given to us could be considered as big or gargantuan, but we need not to stop thinking and being dynamic. There are instances that anxiety and even fear could envelope us, especially with this deadly virus. But then again, we as educators would continue to plan, we would continue to implement, and we would continue to do tasks which would allow education to happen. That is the reason why a plan, specifically a learning continuity plan, must be in place, because we understand that if there is no learning continuity, there is a learning gap which will happen among the children, among the learners. And this learning gap is very, very tantamount to distraction. Why? Because we understand that the learners that we are dealing with are the future leaders. They will become the future legislators. They will become the future managers of our place. That's the reason why of our country. That's the reason why learning must continue. And even with fear, even with uh, anxiety, and even with things which could not be controlled by us, we need to put an extra effort or an extra mile, leading to greater achievement, specifically in our uh, line of work. And we understand that the growth mindset must be practiced by us because we believe that intelligence and talents could be cultivated in order to succeed. So therefore, even in virtual conferences just like this, we need to continue to cultivate our capacities. We need to continuously cultivate our intelligence for us to be able to proceed towards a certain direction, which could allow us to be successful in what we are doing. Uh, Having a growth mindset is essential for success, especially now, as we've all had to dive headfirst into navigating a new world. As Dweck describes flawlessly, the passion for stretching yourself and sticking to it, even or especially when it's not going well, is the hallmark of the growth mindset. This is the mindset that allows people to thrive during some of the most challenging times in their lives. So, as this particular theory by Dweck, we need to continuously stretch ourselves. We understand that we are resilient as as Filipinos. We are known to be resilient, and we need to understand how to stretch our limits, how to understand that we could still do more despite the threats of the virus. And we need to stick to it. We need to continuously push ourselves towards the direction of the mission and the vision of our department. That's the reason why, even with these challenging times, even with the pandemic, we need to consider that our roles as school heads or as academic managers and academic leaders must not stop. We need to continuously push ourselves towards a good direction because we understand that this particular mindset would allow us to be successful. Okay, having a growth mindset when navigating our new normal involves, amongst other qualities, understanding that taking appropriate risks sometimes leads to failure. It's how you define and bounce back from the failure that counts. This involves embracing challenges, learning from criticism, persisting in the face of setbacks, seeing effort as the path to mastery, and finding lessons and inspiration in the success of others. So, as we continuously face our daily activities as school heads or as leaders in the school, we need to allow ourselves to be dynamic in embracing the growth mindset when we navigate the new normal because we could see that others are also bouncing back, and they are embracing the challenges. They are learning from the things which are happening in their surrounding and even from the mistakes that they've encountered along the way. They are persisting in the face of setbacks, and they are trying to be successful. And although we are afraid, and although we are so much concerned about our families and even our own health rather, we need to continually evolve. We need to continually embrace dynamic movements towards the greater good. When we say the greater good, we are looking into the development or the progress of the academic community, specifically the learners and even the teachers and the community. We understand that we as educators are building the nation. We are building the future through the learners. That is the reason why we need to seek inspiration from others as well. We need to consider the work, the efforts of other school heads, of other educators, as we see them thrive even during the pandemic. So, in the new normal, there is a tendency that we tend to be what we tend to dwell on the negative. We tend to dwell on fear, but we could also uh, thrive in positivity. We could also grow in times of these anxiety and these times of uh, what we call as times of darkness, because nobody was prepared when the pandemic hit us. So therefore, we need to continually embrace the growth mindset, because this would allow us to become better versions of ourselves. There is no guidebook for school leaders as they make decisions and try to move forward during the pandemic. With more than 5.55 million children out of school right now, the uncertainty is a challenge for school leaders who are often used to orderliness and control. When the pandemic hit the Philippines or even the world, we were not prepared. We were caught unawares, and we were not prepared. No, it was not inside our minds that something like this would happen. So that was the reason why orderliness and control went berserk. We were not able to control what would happen to the school system. That is the reason why, uh, since there is no guidebook, there's no specific fit for or a template for school heads to make decisions in uncertain times. We just have to be strong, and we just have to understand that we still could thrive even if with these uncertain times. We still could adapt. We still could give mitigating factors for us to be able to continually serve and to realize the mission of our department. Now, every school and every school district has a learning continuity plan, but a crisis of this magnitude has been unimaginable. Academic leaders must be proactive enough to deal with the situation at hand. So, as I was saying a while ago, there is really a need for the academic leaders, specifically the school heads, to be proactive. Being proactive is not just waiting for something from the top, not just waiting for uh, manna from heaven. We need to understand that we could do our job properly by looking into our communities, understanding the demographic profile of the communities that we are into, and we could look for plans and for better things that we could do in order for the community, the learning community of us, to continuously proceed towards a good direction. That's the reason why the situation at hand, the pandemic, or the virus threatening the school ecosystem, is already a given. It is already there. So we could not just sit and do nothing. We need to continuously bounce back, and we need to think about ideas, we need to think about plans, and we need to do things which could allow us to move forward. That's the reason why that uh, the learning continuity plan is a necessity for us to be able to continuously thrive even in this particular pandemic. Now, I'd like you to have these takeaways. So, as we continue with the discussion, there are frameworks that we need to revisit to get on top of the work. Example, the most essential learning competencies must be well thought of among teachers as they design worksheets and remote learning modules. The plans and other frameworks must be in step with the present needs. So, since the Department of Education created or designed the MELC, or the most essential learning competencies, we as school heads must also understand the importance of these competencies so that we would be able to communicate them to the teachers for them to be able to design authentic worksheets and remote learning modules I was talking about proactivity. Although our division is designing PPEs or portfolio-based modules, we need to understand that we could also create our own worksheets, our own modular things based from the MELCS. These things would allow us to become cost efficient. These things would allow us to become more effective in our delivery modalities because we understand the demographic profiles of our ecology, of our ecosystem. We understand that different schools have different demographic profiles, and it entails a lot of revisitation to the frameworks, to the plans, and etc. So I'd like to encourage the school heads, specifically those who are tuning in right now, that the frameworks and the things that we need to understand must be revisited. The plans, the LCPs, and even the technical assistance plans must be considered properly. The supervisory plans and all the frameworks that we need to understand revisiting should be considered as well. And the most important plan which we should revisit could be the SIP or the school improvement plan, because we understand that this is going to be the heart or the soul of the school. So all the things that we are planning, all the things that we are preparing in times of the pandemic should be uh, placed in our school improvement plan. So there is a need for us to revisit the SIP, for us to be able to understand better how to adjust to the new normal. Aside from the revisitation of the frameworks, we need to forego top-down decision making. Make sure key players are involved in the planning process. The teaching and non-teaching personnel must be involved in the different plans. The stakeholders must also be communicated with the stringent actions to be done. If it's an inclusive process done with principals, they are far more likely to model that same behavior in problem solving with their teachers. So meaning, when we are going to revisit, when we're going to perform planning, when we're going to do things for the benefit of the academic community, we need to understand the inclusiveness or the inclusion of the people in the system. The teachers must be included in the decision making. The internal and the external stakeholders must also be allowed to put a stake on the decision of the things that we do in this new normal. An example to that is when we are going to plan for the modalities, when the new learning modalities are in place, when we do the decision tree process, we could allow the barangay local government units, we could allow the PTAs or the Parents Teachers Association, we could allow the business sector to sit in with us and to plan and to make decisions become better. Because with these people, we understand that our roles, our tasks would become lighter, specifically with the help of the people around the community. It's already a cliche when we say that it takes a village to educate a child, but it's really true. It's really a need for us to be able to realize that this is really a reality. That it takes a village to educate a child. So therefore, we need to understand that foregoing top-down decision is a necessity. So we would allow the stakeholders to be involved so that uh, the bigger picture would really happen. No, the bigger picture would really become a reality. So we are encouraging people from the outside to be with us. But then again, as CEO, as mandated by RA 9155, it is the school head who would man. It is the school head who would be the chief executive officer of the school. So therefore, the decisions, although you are picking suggestions and some good decisions from others, you need to understand You need to be in control because you are the steerer of your ship. You are the driver of your bus. So you need not to digress towards a certain direction, but towards the department's mission and vision. So that is really one of the stringent points that we need to understand. We need to invite these people to be with us, but the leader, the school head, must understand the direction of the school. Aside from that, we also have to focus on professional development. How do we help teachers build capacity? So we build on what they've already had to learn in this new phase of virtual learning, of this new normal, but also we consider how to increase their capacity on the first day back. So since the first day of school is already transferred to October 5 instead of August 24, we have ample time for the teachers to be capacitated. You know, uh, aside from us, we are caught unawares of what is happening because there is something new in the uh, modalities that we are presenting. The teachers are also trying to adjust towards this new normal. That's the reason why school heads must also understand how to build the confidence, how to build the capacity of the teachers in order for them to be able to face the new realities. So we still have time to allow them to look into the contextualization of the modules, since others are complaining about the bulkiness of the module. We could look into it. No, we could say that our modules, the developers of the modules, were very good in going deeper into the discussions, but the teachers could also be trained how to contextualize, how to slim down, trim down these modules without sacrificing the key concepts in the learning process. So we could allow them to be trained. We could allow resource persons. We could invite resource persons to be with us in order to build capacities. There are some of the teachers who are also prone to commit mistakes since they are not literate in ICT or in computer programming and many things more. So that's one of the things that we could consider. We could build their capacities in designing digitized classes to deepen the modular delivery. We could also allow them to understand how to do radio-based instruction or TV-based instruction for us to be able to look more considerations of the different modalities. That's the reason why we could focus on professional development in this new normal for us to be able to have more strength in our workforce. So that's the reason why we could say that focusing on professional development is also a good takeaway for the discourse that we are having right now. Okay. Aside from that, we need to build networks, collaborate, share best practices. If you are not already connected to other districts or other schools, then now is a great time to develop that network, because what happens at the regional or national level might vary tremendously. It behooves superintendents and principals to collaborate and share best practices across the district and beyond. So we need to build networks. We are one DepEd, so other regions, other schools, other school heads, other teachers could share best practices. I always believe that sharing best practices, sharing tools, sharing self-made modules, and many things more could help the bigger DepEd community. This is not the time to be selfish. This is not the time to be self-centered. Once we find some educational tools, some materials which could help boost the learning of our students or learning of our pupils, we could share them to other teachers. We could allow them to benchmark also best practices of our schools for the entirety of the DepEd to have these particular things, no, so that the learners would understand that we are really working, we are really building networks for their development. I'd like to underscore on collaboration. Collaboration would allow us to be more in step with the thinking of other people. You know, there are instances that we are limited to what we believe is right and what we believe is not good. But then again, when we are going to collaborate, when we are going to listen to others, we would realize that there are new gems of wisdom to crop up. There are new ideas which could be applied to our own ecology. That's the reason why collaboration is one of the best things to happen during these times of the pandemic, during these times of the new normal. I'd like to encourage as well other school heads to innovate. Innovation is a necessity, and if we innovate, imagine if we all of the school heads would innovate, and these innovations would be shared, you know, across the division, across the region, or even across the country. There is really a tendency that uh, good outputs would be realized. Not just good outputs, but good outcomes. That's the reason why we encourage building networks, we encourage collaboration, and we encourage sharing of best practices. Now, since this is a research forum, I'd like to put this very important thing of discussion. As school heads, we need to develop a culture of research. We need to highlight the importance of research culture and engage all staff across the school. Presentations, workshops, and panel discussions could be given from across the districts. So we are doing that. We have district research conferences. Different departments could showcase the ways they have improved research culture and integrity, as well as addressing areas where there is still room for improvement. The point of this slide is for us to be able to develop a culture of research. Our research coordinator, Miss Lisa, is trying her best rather to make research as a culture among the schools, as a culture among the districts, and eventually a culture in the division. Why research? Research would allow us to look for interventions. Research would allow us to revisit old practices and develop new innovations. Research would allow us to understand what are the mitigating factors on the gaps, what are the mitigating things that we could do on the gaps that we are encountering right now. One of the researches that we are conducting in our school right now is the viability of textbook as the main tool for learning delivery. We are conducting a research right now, and we are into the analysis of the results and the data gathered from the respondents and gathered from the learners, if the textbooks are viable enough to become learning modules. So why do we do this? The main reason that we are doing this, although this is really a brilliant idea of the superintendent, and Ma'am Carmen tasked me to do that, I told some of the teachers that we need to be scientific in dealing with this particular inquiry. We need to put statistical treatments in the things that we do for us to be able to give a scientific set of recommendations. Ma'am Carmen told us to look into the consideration of the textbook as the main tool for the modality or the modular modality versus the worksheets that we are doing too. So we are having two communities or two groups of learners. One is the control group, the Doyos learners, and the Gomoton learners was for the experimental group. So that's the reason why we are trying to deal with this to look for cost-effective measures, cost-efficient measures for us not to have a lot of resources, especially in printing things, be spent. So when this particular research would be realized or would be analyzed and the recommendations would be given to the superintendents, policies will be developed out from the research. And these policies will be cascaded to the different schools or the entire division. So the the policy would allow us to look into cost efficiency for us to be able to make learning continuity happen. So the culture of research is a necessity not just to big companies but also academic communities just like the school. A lot of people, specifically school heads, would shy away from doing research. In fact, when I look into the IPCRF result of the master teachers whom they whom are considered to become research, what we call them as research persons, they find this particular thing difficult. That's the reason why in the SPPD of Carrascal National High School, we are putting a lot of premium on a lock session for research, specifically for the master teachers. Why? Because classroom interventions, things which could allow the learners to learn more, mitigating factors, recommendations, scientific analysis must be in place in the school because without these things, there is a tendency that the academic community or academic movement of the school will become stagnant. So therefore, I have to repeatedly say that we need to develop a culture of research. We need to highlight the importance of research culture and engage the staff, the teachers across the school. Okay, we would also like to listen and we would also like to attend, just like what we did a while ago, to the presentations of the different schools for us to be able to benchmark, for us to be able to understand that there is what we call as importance of this particular thing. So I already gave you some of the takeaways of this particular talk. I already told you about the importance of these things, specifically the collaboration part, and the consideration that we are one DepEd. In wrapping up the discussion that I'd like to show to you, I'd like to go back to the discussion of being proactive. It was already mentioned by Kofi that there are two types of persons. No, we have persons who are reactive and persons who are proactive. Reactive persons would wait for things which would allow him or her to do actions out or reactions out from a certain situation. And there are also persons who could be considered as proactive. These persons would think first. No, they have this mindset of looking forward. They are thinking ahead. No, they are looking things in a new perspective ahead of the time. So they are prepared, they are disciplined, and they are doing things on the right track. So there is a tendency that a lot of us are just waiting for instructions from the division office. There is a mindset that we need to just wait for what is being taught. But in the new normal, a growth mindset or a dynamic mindset must be considered by each and every one of us, specifically the school leaders and the school managers. Why? Why do we have to consider that? Because these are different times. These are difficult times. So we could not be toppled with the virus. We could not be toppled by the new normal, so-called new normal. We need to continuously allow education to happen. Try to imagine a community with people who have less knowledge, who have no skills, and bad attitudes thriving around them. Try imagining a municipality full of people with no competencies, full of people who could be considered dysfunctional, and try to imagine a country with people who are not educated. So, as school leaders, we need to impose, we need to plan, we need to implement these plans, and we need to think ahead in order for the mission and the vision of the department to be realized. So, therefore, proactivity and thinking ahead and having a mindset of dynamism and having a mindset of growth must be in place because there is a tendency that learning and development would really happen because it is directly proportional. Development would happen when there is learning rather. So we need to look into that particular mindset. We need to understand that by collaborating, but by sharing best practices, by researching, and by capacitating the teachers, we are going to understand that if these things would be realized, there is progress and there is success in our fields. So today, as I'd like to end my talk to you, I'd like to congratulate those school heads who are in step with this particular mindset. I'd like to commend you for your efforts, especially those who are planning ahead, especially for those who are uh, doing things right, especially those who are capacitating the teachers, especially those who are burning their midnight candles. I'd also like to congratulate and commend the teachers who are tuning in right now, who are doing their best in thinking not just for the outputs but for the outcomes, in realizing that we are not looking into just the materials but learning. Congratulations for those who are thinking about products, not just processes. We understand that our product is learning. Although the processes that we are trying to fine tune are important, but we need to understand that the outcome of all these processes is learning. And that's the reason why we need to fine tune them for us to be able to attain achievement or academic achievement among our learners. For the persons in the division office, specifically with the research team, and of course with the active manning of resources by the superintendent and the different chiefs of the CID and the SGOD. I'd like to commend you for allowing these things to happen in the field because we need to understand that we have to be cohesive in the efforts of pushing towards a direction of success. This cohesiveness must be instilled in the minds not just of the teachers, of the school heads, of the supervisors, but also among parents and among stakeholders. And we need to continue doing it. We need to continue dealing with it so that we would be able to realize our mandate. We would be able to come across and we would be able to make the Philippines a better place because of our department. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to understand that I hope there was some input that was being released and that was being intercepted by you. So again, thank you very much. Good morning, and we need to do solong edukalidad. Thank you, and again, good morning.